welcome back to the GT Cup Championship here at Donington Park for rounds 19 to 22. We're back after the summer break, and if you remember, we started in Donington Park at the beginning of the season, and it's been such an amazing season for the GT Cup Championship 2023. I'm quite sad that it's coming to an end because we've reached the penultimate round. But if you remember last time we were at Silverstone, it was quite chaotic and the weather had a lot to play in a lot of those races. So why don't we take a look at some of the highlights from Silverstone.
So here we go, then we're about to get round 15 of the 2023 GT Cup Championship underway. Hugo Cook there on pole position with James Wallace alongside the two young, fast, rapid chargers on the front row of the grid. One in an Audi, one in a McLaren. 20 minutes are on the clock because it's a sprint race. And as the lights go out now, they charge their way up towards Copse Corner. Tom Roach is going to take the lead of the race from the second row of the grid. The Welshman carves his way through the order. Spin there, and that's Seamus Jennings that's had the spin. Full 360-degree spin, middle of the track. Richard Chamberlain dived at the inside of Stephen Walton, and that's caused suspension damage to the Mercedes as it tried to turn in. Nice to see the National Motorsport Academy back in GT Cup, and I've got to say, nice to see Jay Shepherd in GT Cup as well. A man who, back at the best part of 20 years ago, was competing in the TVR Tuscan Challenge. So this car has been rebuilt by the students at the National Motorsport Academy, and there's contact by the look of things. That is Tom Roach that has clattered into the side of the sister car from the team, which is Russ Lindsay's Porsche. And it is going to be a win for the Audi. Over the start-finish line comes Hugo Cook and claims his fourth win of the season for himself and the team in the 2023 GT Cup Championship. Wait the arrival of James Wallace, who comes through to finish in second position. Round 16 of the 2023 GT Cup Championship is about to get underway here at Silverstone. Red lights are on the gantry, and as they flash out now, Simon Orange, I'm sure, will make sure he doesn't punch the accelerator too quickly as Tom Roach did in race number one, but it is the same car that leads through Copse Corner as it was in the sprint race earlier on. It was a good start this time, however, from Simon Orange. That car is going to need a bit of work by Feathers Motorsport overnight. In fact, it's that rear damage as well by the look of it. So I think we're about to get racing back underway once more. The safety car peels its way in towards the pit lane. In comes the Audi, which has to remain stationary for 5 seconds shorter. So that could be one really to watch. And the other car we really need to watch out for is, we saw Paul Rogers in the McLaren losing a bit of time, but that car only stops when he hands over to James Wallace for 60 seconds. So he's gaining 35 seconds on the Audi and 40 seconds on the car that was leading. The clock has ticked to 0, and it looks as though we are on for a 4th overall win of the season for the Orange Racing powered by JMH McLaren. It's going to be their 5th group win of the season and makes up for the problems that befell them in the sprint race earlier on. Round 16 of the 2023 GT Cup goes the way of Simon Orange and Tom Roach in our second of 4 races at Silverstone over the course of this weekend. It's Sasha Kakak and Hugo Cook who sets the fastest lap on the very final lap. For the lead of Group GTC, Dan Dazeal and Tom Fleming at the wheel of the 2 Ferraris that run to Ferrari Challenge specification were wheel to wheel going in towards Stowe Corner. Are we going to have a change for second and the lead of Group GTC? Yes, we do. Dan Dazeal goes through. Now, Dan was a bit of a star in the damp conditions at Alton Park last time out, and clearly he is relishing these conditions here at Silverstone at the moment. Sasha Kakad and the Audi are in the pit lane off, and I'm afraid that is the Ram Racing number 8 Mercedes in the hands of Adam Knight that's had an off. So every lap is an education, and this time through Tom Fleming gets up the inside of Dan Dazeal heading in towards Copse Corner. Careful that you don't touch those curbs with the painted surface, and Tom Fleming picks up the lead of the race from Dan Dazeal, and that's an off, and that is into the barriers by the look of things, the Mercedes. And it's not the only car that's had the off, because we can see that the McLaren has got damage to the front left-hand corner of it, and that is Paul Rogers in the 76 car. So conditions, certainly in some parts of the circuit, still deteriorating. But Sasha Kakad here is, I think, going to ease his way through. We're going to get a win for Tom Fleming as he's about to head out very shortly of the final corner. Who's going to finish in second and third? Well, I think Dan Dazeal is going to miss out on a podium because Sasha Kakad is going to pick his pocket. Through comes Tom Fleming. He will claim the win up towards Copse Corner, and with 40 minutes to go, we finally get the race underway. Now, in theory, there should be no overtaking until the start-finish line, so everybody's just got to choose their moment as to when they want to dive on the throttle and make sure that they do not shuffle positions. Now, for Sasha Kakad, he also needs to watch his mirrors because he's got Gilbert Yates right with him, the 3rd place Lamborghini that leads Group GTC. But right behind Gilbert Yates is the 4th place Ferrari, which is second in Group GTC. So it's GT3 cars first and second, challenge specification cars, i.e. in the case of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo spec car, and then a Ferrari challenge car in 4th place. So over the start finish line they'll go, and Gilbert Yates has got the run on Sasha Kakad in a straight line. We know the GTC cars are quick, and through goes Gilbert Yates to pick up 2nd place overall in the race. And that's Andre Borodin's off by the look of things. He's come out of Chapel Curve and he's lost the tail end of the McLaren. He's spun to the left-hand side of the circuit, and Russ is in 10th place at the moment. So this is 10th, 11th and 12th altogether. Now both looking to try and weave their way through and past the Porsche. Is Russ going to let them go? I think he will, as he heads up towards Brooklands. Yep, so through goes Mikey Broadhurst. He's got the job done. He's through and ahead off Seb Morris in the Mercedes, who was almost sideways and right on the curbs. And that's going to be the 2nd win this weekend as well. So over the start-finish line they'll go. It's a win for J&S Racing and the Audi of Sasha Kakad and Hugo Cook.
Great to see some of the highlights from Silverstone, but it was quite a chaotic few rounds, wasn't it, Piers? There was lots of DNFs, there was lots of dramas, and it was the end of the road for a few of the drivers, wasn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately we saw the crash with in the Group GTH cars, of course. Tom Canning and James Guest, they had that end of the race there, and they're probably not going to. They're not going to be here this weekend either, because they're out of the championship and damage to the car. So it's a real shame. They're not the only ones either.
Well, no, there was a bit of a collision in Orange Racing as well, and I thought that might have really affected them, but they're still at the top of the leaderboard in the team standing, so it didn't really affect them too much. But the weather had a lot to play at Silverstone, to be honest, and I'm not really sure how it's going to affect this race, because I think we are due for some rain as well.
Yeah, it was changeable weather, wasn't it? And we saw the Group GTC cars, especially the Ferraris of Tom Fleming and the Dezils as well. They were going really well in the dampish conditions. It's dry for now, but that doesn't mean that this weekend it's going to stay dry. Very different, of course, circuit, Donington to Silverstone. The tarmac's new, so potentially a bit more grip. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend, especially if it rains.
Well, it affected a lot of the drivers' races, but it didn't affect Paul Bailey and Ross Wiley, as they're still at the top of the leaderboard for the driver standings and the overall championship standings. So why don't we take a look at the track guide for Donington Park, voiced by Andy McEwen.
It's the 2nd visit of the season to Donington Park for GT Cup. This time, though, we're on the full Grand Prix loop that begins in a familiar way with the run through Redgate, Hollywood, and the famous Craner curves. The old hairpin is always an action spot before the cars make their way uphill towards the highest point of the circuit at Coppice. Really important turn that leads them onto the exhibition straight, at the end of which we hang a left through the Fogarty S's and then barrel down towards the Melbourne hairpin, which is one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit. The lap ends with another tight hairpin, the left-hander at Goddard's, before the blast down the Wheatcroft straight to begin another lap. Donington, a real driver's favourite circuit, partly because it offers lots of overtaking opportunities and partly because of the elevation change over the 2.5 miles. The circuit sweeps up and down through the East Midlands countryside. That plunge down into the old hairpin is perhaps one of the absolute favourite sequences of corners in the country. It's a real momentum circuit, Donington, as well. Side-by-side racing is common, but it will delay the drivers involved. That often backs the cars up into a big group and creates an awful lot of action. All 12 turns add a challenge to the circuit, one that the drivers will be familiar with, but they'll still have to work hard to overcome this weekend.
As you can see, Donington is a very fast-flowing circuit with quite a few tricky and technical corners with a bit of undulation as well, but it makes it for a driver's favourite track, especially when you're coming up to the last 2 hairpins, which leaves lots of room for overtaking opportunities, so it might be quite exciting on track. In terms of the weather, I'm not really sure what's going on, to be honest, because there's a little bit of sun, there's a bit of cloud, and there has been forecast for rain this weekend, so who knows what's going to happen. And when we remember back to Silverstone, that was really bad, to be honest, in terms of the weather, because there was lots of rain, which means it was so hard for the drivers, and aquaplaning, and it obviously ruined a lot of the drivers' races. But I think now we should catch up with Piers Pryor, so let's take a look at who he's interviewing. Piers, who are you with?
Yep, thanks, Amber. We're down here. I've got Tim Docker. Tim, I believe you've got a new car you're racing this weekend. It doesn't look hugely different, but it's the new Artura, which is a bit different to drive than the old 570.
Yeah, very much so. At the moment, probably not going materially quicker in it. It's bopped, obviously, and Phil Carter's doing pretty well in the 570 against us, but it's a much racier car, and I think with a little bit of time behind the wheel, we'll run well in it.
You will run well, and it's not the only change for this weekend either. Of course, normally, or have done quite a lot of the time in racing with Jordan Albert this weekend, but you've got a new teammate this weekend in Alex Walker. Alex, you want to jump on in? Alex, we saw your face kicking around in the paddock earlier on this year, but it must be good to actually get out on circuit in a race in anger this weekend.
Yeah, no, it's really good to get back racing. Had a little bit of time off, but yeah, thanks to Tim and Paddock for having me. And as you said earlier as well, with the new Artura, it's really nice to try something different, and hopefully it goes well.
And Tim, how's Alex been doing in the car so far?
It's quick. It's quick. It was certainly quick yesterday, compared to, the pro drivers that were out there. Obviously, you can never tell for absolute certain. It's a practice session, and today, he'll be out there in anger. But I'm very confident that he'll do well against the other guys that he's going to be up against.
Goals for the weekend?
Podiums.
Podiums it is. Heard it here first. Thanks very much for chatting to us, Tim.
Okay.
So I'm joined with some new faces. Can you introduce yourself, obviously, to the viewers that watch the GT Cup Championship?
Sure. I'm Alana Carter. I'm from Canada, and I'm here with my teammate.
I'm Sarah Mazera. I'm from Jamaica.
And we're here on Team Formula Woman.
Oh, amazing. So can you talk to me a little bit more about that? I think a lot of the viewers will know about Formula Women, but talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Formula Women is a really cool community where we're trying to help get more women into motorsports, get women further into motorsports. So each year they held a competition. Sarah won the previous year, and I am the more recent winner. So I got to join her this year. And yeah, running in the GT Cup is like part of, I guess, our prize. Is that the right word?
It's been great, especially with Lotus and their support, and that car has been absolutely phenomenal on the track. I was surprised by every aspect of it, and being here joined with Alana has only been great. We're both very similar in our backgrounds and experiences, so similar but very different at the same time, but in good ways, because I'm weak, she's stronger, and we make up and help each other a lot. So it's been a great weekend so far.
So it's a great team partnership going on, basically. And when did you both get into racing?
I got into oval track racing at a younger age when I was about 11 or 12. And then I only switched over to circuit racing about 2 years ago. So I'm a bit more of a rookie in this world, but I've been going fast for a little while.
And how are you finding this car then?
Oh my God, I love it. This was my first time ever driving a GT4 car. First time ever at Donington, and I only got about 15 minutes of practice in on the Thursday, and I just qualified as P6, so I'm pretty happy about it.
So you're doing well, basically, and it's a stunning car. And when did you then get into racing?
I got into racing a little bit late. I was 18 years old. I used to be into equestrian, but unfortunately I got into a big accident with the horse. So my parents had a little scare, and they're like, you know what, try go-karting, because I had a father who was long history of motorsport. So I tried go-karting, I fell in love with it, and I guess it just built up to now we're here.
I mean, horse riding though, you'd probably think that's the safer one, not with the car racing. To be honest, I think my parents would be like, maybe stick to the horse riding, but no. So how are you looking forward to this weekend then? How do you think the races are going to go for you guys?
We're really excited. I mean, for my first race in GT Cup, Sarah's a handful now.
Yeah, fourth or so.
Like, we're really out here to have a good weekend, run clean, and improve ourselves. Like, we've got nothing to prove to anyone else, just growth.
It's all a learning curve. So both of us are relatively very new to GT4 circuit. So all our goal is to just every time we go out, we improve, we come home in one piece, and we enjoy the weekend.
Sprint race. We're about to head into the first sprint race of the weekend here at Donington Park on the GP circuit, and it's going to be quite an interesting race. I think quali was very interesting, but the Porsche Richard Chamberlain didn't even get out because of a few mechanical issues, which is such a shame. However, they are fixing the car at the minute, so he might be out potentially this weekend, but we'll see.
We'll see. It'll be good to see that very unique car out later on today, if possible. But no, very tight at the front of the field regardless, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really good for quali. Tom Roach was actually quite disappointed that he only got second, but that's still a really good position. Obviously, he is fighting against J&S Racing, which is Hugo Cook and Sasha Kakad. But Orange Racing are at the top of the team standings, which we mentioned before. But the points are so close between these two, and they're both strong for Group GT3. But that is the strongest category, I would say, on the grid. But after that, we've got GTH, and that is the most competitive, I think, out of all of them.
Yeah, so many cars so close together. Of course, you've got the Morpheus Racing AMGs and all the brand new Arturas as well. Tim Docker's back there, and yeah, it's going to be really, really tight, especially in Group GTH. I'm looking forward to it. The sun is just trying to break through for this morning, which will be nice to get the race underway, but it's so tight in qualifying in all of the groups that, you know, this race could be anyone's. It's going to be important to get away at the start well.
Well, Group GTH, we've now lost James Guest and Tom Canning because of an incident that happened, so hopefully that they'll be back for Snetterton, I think. But we're not too sure, but it's so competitive, especially, like you say, with all our invitational participants at the minute. And I caught up with Sarah and Alana, who normally race in Formula Women, and they're really excited to get on the Lotus Amira, a stunning car. We've got another Lotus with National Motorsport Academy. It's going to be really interesting, this race, I think, Piers.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Of course, rolling start as always in GT Cup, so this keeps the start nice and tight. 25-minute sprint race, so everyone's going to have their elbows out at the start, but of course, don't want too much damage in the first race of the weekend. And yeah, we're about to go racing, I think.
I think we are, so maybe we should make our way off the grid, but it's going to be a really exciting race, so stay tuned, and I'll pass you back over to Andy.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Really looking forward to this. My name is Andy McEwen. I'll be joined very shortly by Piers up in the commentary box to talk you through all of the action across the 4 GT Cup races this weekend. As the guys were saying down on the grid, we're getting down to the business end of the season now. Points really starting to matter. But above all else, we should be in for a weekend of fantastic racing here. Donington Park, one of my absolute favourite circuits. It always creates good side-by-side action. And with the addition of the Grand Prix loop compared to the national circuit that we raced on earlier on in the season, we should see even more exciting overtaking, dive-bombing action down at the Melbourne Hairpin. Cars then making their way around on the green flag lap. This is how they will line up for our first of the 2 sprint races this weekend. Hugo Cook starts the number 32 Cook Racing Audi from pole alongside Tom Roach in the number 67 McLaren. Then it will be Ian Campbell and Darren Leung sharing the second row, the Racelab McLaren, ahead of the Century Motorsport BMW. Row number 3 of the grid then is where we find Charlotte Gilbert. She'll be starting the GTC Top Cats Racing Lamborghini, with Seamus Jennings in the GCAT Racing Porsche next. Jay Shepherd, a solo driver in his GTO Lotus, and then it will be the Paul Bailey started number 28 car. That car, remember, leads the overall championship coming into this weekend. 9th on the grid then, the 999 car started by Russ Lindsay, then another one of the Racelab McLarens of Callum Davis. The next row of the grid, row 6, sees Chris Murphy in his GTO car, with Chris Hart starting the GTH Make Happen Racing Mercedes. Then we have got John Curry in the number 96 car that he shares with Phil Keane, starting 14th on the grid alongside him, Philip Carter. Then Keith Bush starts from 15th alongside Tim Docker in the number 78 Paddock Motorsport McLaren. Getting towards the back of the grid now then, 17th on the grid for Alana Carter. David Franklin starts the GTH 24/7 Motorsport Mercedes next. At the back row of the grid, we have Melly Zhang and Richard Chamberlain. I did see the CTR Developments Porsche out there on the green flag lap. That is tremendous news after they got no running in this morning. Hopefully they've got to the bottom of their mechanical issues, because we've seen over the years that car is very, very competitive. Piers has made his way up into the commentary box. We're approaching the start of the race, Piers. It's going to be a good one, this, isn't it?
I'm looking forward to the fight at the front of the field. There's going to be very, very close between that McLaren 720S, the orange one, and then of course the Kakad Audi on the front row. Only 2/10 between them in qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty close over what is a reasonably long lap, 2.5 miles. Fairly technically demanding circuit, Donington Park's Grand Prix circuit, and yet those 2 cars very evenly matched indeed. So Hugo Cook starts the red and white Audi from pole. It is Tom Roach in the number 67 McLaren that starts alongside him. The GT3 cars, as you'd expect, at the front of the field. Round Goddard's they will come then. The BMW safety car pulls into pit lane. 25 minutes of GT Cup sprint racing about to get underway here at Donington Park. 2x2 to the line, the lights go out, and we are racing. The Audi on the inside line of Hugo Cook, trying to hold the advantage. Already, I'm afraid, Richard Chamberlain's Porsche is in the pit lane, but the Audi will will lead at Redgate Corner from the pole position. Hugo Cook holding on to the advantage, gets out of Redgate still nice and clean in front. A couple of cars running wide further back, but a dream start that, Piers, for the pole man.
Yeah, good start from Kakad on the front row. Darren Lung had a look around the outside of turn 1, couldn't quite get it done, but we're going single file down the Craner curves in Group GT3 and Group GTC. Group GT8 still very, very close as always.
Indeed so, down through the old hairpin they have gone, up towards McLean's corner for the first time then, the Audi leading the way, well, the driver order sheet I was sent says Hugo Cook has started that car. We know sometimes from past experience that can change, but certainly the way he's going, I would tend to agree with that, looking really confident on cold tyres. It's not the warmest day here today, Piers, is it? So having that confidence on the opening lap can really separate some of the more experienced drivers from those who maybe are lacking in confidence.
Oh, completely. These GT3 cars, especially in Group GT3, they're so fast and such big tyres. Of course, there are tyre ones. Oh no, that's the number 17.
As Melly Zhang off at McLean's, I think, Piers.
Yeah, and the new Artura going through the gravel, but it's going to continue on, which is good to see. But yeah, the GT cars, they're so fast. It's all about confidence, especially on such a high and medium speed circuit such as Donington. And there's a lot of fast corners, as we see Darren Lung making a lot of time up on the brakes into the final corner there. But the drivers that are well versed in the cars will be able to push from lap 1, as we're seeing from the 2 at the front of the field. But Darren Lung looking pretty racy in 4th place, trying to get onto the podium positions.
We've seen in the past that BMW is very good on the brakes, and Darren almost, I think, was tempted into a move at Redgate Corner, decided better of it. It's Ian Campbell, we believe, who he's got in his sights, nose to tail through the Craner curves, and the front end of that BMW working well. You can see there Campbell's car just wandering a bit wide of the apex through the left-hander, but he manages to hold on to the track position. It is a place, Piers, where you can go side by side quite easily, but only really 1 or 2 places where you're going to make an outright overtaking attempt, and really a lot of them come at the very start or the very end of the lap.
Yes, the last sector with through the Fogarty S's and into the Melbourne Loop, and then the last corner, and then also turn 1 at Redgate are main overtaking opportunities. But at Donington, it's largely about setting someone up the corner before, so getting a good exit so you're close enough, because especially that middle sector, it's so flowing that you're not really going to launch an attack, as you mentioned, whereas this last sector, getting through the Fogarty S's, which seems like a little quick chicane that's not that consequential, but we can see that Dan Lung's got a good exit, like we mentioned, and already looking up the inside.
Campbell defends, holds on to the inside line, holds on to 3rd position, but Darren Leung gets on the power a bit earlier, tries to get the run towards Goddard, where again the inside line surely isn't available to him. Really good battle this for 3rd position. They're delaying each other slightly, but it's very exciting to watch, and as they round the final turn, it's still the McLaren in front. It remains car number 32 that leads the way, by the way, the Audi leading by 0.6 of a second, but it's even tighter for 3rd place, side by side into Redgate Corner. Leung on the outside, surely he's not going to try and go right round the outside. That's exactly what he does, commits to the manoeuvre, gets on the power. Has he cleared the McLaren? Yes, he has. Fantastic move, Piers.
That's a great move, and you can see a flash of the lights from the McLaren behind. The previous lap, it was Leung that was flashing the lights going down the Craner curves, but what an excellent manoeuvre. A manoeuvre we've seen a lot at Donington over the years in different championships around the outside of Redgate. Not so much I've seen since they resurfaced the circuit over the winter, because that line seems to have changed a bit, but you have to be good on the brakes. We know that BMW is good on the brakes, and it's shown there.
And you have to have confidence in the driver you're overtaking that they're not going to run you to the edge of the track on the exit. And in fairness there to Ian Campbell, left plenty of space for Darren Leung to complete the manoeuvre. I think he realised maybe that Darren was a bit faster at that stage of the race, and so was not happy but willing to concede that 3rd place. Back to the leaders now then, down towards the Melbourne hairpin we go. Fastest lap of the race belongs to Hugo Cook. He set that on the previous lap, the first full flying lap, but he ain't shaking off Tom Roach, who is right in his wheel tracks. Through the hairpin they go then, climbing uphill, the man who had so much success in one-make MX-5 racing for many years, these days turning his hand to GT racing, and he is latched on to the rear end of that Audi.
Yeah, fastest 1st and 2nd sector for the Audi at the front of the field, but it looks like in the final sector, yes, 0.4 faster was Roach.
That's interesting, isn't it? Both mid-engine GT3 cars, you'd expect them to make their lap times in similar ways. Now, some good battling going on here further back. We've got the Lotus that runs within Group GTO that is at the head of this group. That's Jay Shepherd, 13th place overall he runs at the moment. That's 3rd within the GTO class, a class that's being led by the number 28 car, the championship leading car of Paul Bailey. So he's on course for maximum points right now within his class, and that's only going to assist him in his championship campaign. But some good battling something going on behind, and these GTH cars, I heard you two talking on the grid about this class, could provide some of the closest racing this weekend.
We've seen all year that Group GTH has so many cars so close together. We've seen different winners at different races, how the circuits sort of favour one type of Group GT4 car over another, or Group GTH car, and then you've also got in the mix the BMW in the Group GTO as well, which makes things interesting. It's such a tight class. The cars are all very, very evenly matched, even though everyone thinks that, of course, the balance of performance favours everyone else, but that's just the way that racing drivers are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Never quite satisfied, are they? They always feel that their car could be going a bit more quickly. Correction, by the way, I said Jay Shepherd was 13th. He's actually 9th. He got past this whole group of cars on the previous lap. You would expect the Group GTO Lotus to be quick, and he is proving that to be the case. He's now setting off after another car that runs within, actually the GTC class, the Russ Lindsay 999 car just ahead. The BMW here, though, negotiating the Fogarty S's, making its way down towards the Melbourne hairpin. That car doesn't look like the most agile of machines out there, Piers, but making up for that in a straight line, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. It's definitely fast in a straight line, definitely on the Group GTH cars directly behind. Briefly caught up with Russ Lindsay, literally as he was in the car. He seemed very relaxed, as he always does, and I was looking forward to the race, and you can see him just smashing around the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, which must be a great place to be in a nice 911 GT3 car, or Cup car as it is.
Absolutely so. He is being reeled in now, I think, by this group of cars behind, so things tightening up for what is 9th place overall, albeit cars that are running within different groups. You score class points within your group, which then count towards both your group championship standings and the overall championship table. Still then, car number 32 leads the way, still by a fairly small margin. Darren Leung getting away now from Ian Campbell in the battle for 3rd. Then in 5th position, we have our Group GTC leader. That is the Lamborghini car number 2, started by Charlotte Gilbert, doing a really solid job ahead of the Paul Bailey number 28 car in behind. We're focusing here on the number 13 McLaren, though, as it makes its way up through McLaren's. Callum Davis at the wheel, and he has got the attentions, hasn't he, of Chris Hart, who we believe is at the wheel of the Mercedes in the opening race of the weekend. Back across the timing line come the top 2, though, and still next to no separation between them on the track or in the lap times, and that in a way, Piers, makes Tom Roach's job that little bit harder. He's quick enough to stick with Hugo Cook, but doesn't have a noticeable advantage at any particular part of the circuit, which he could maybe use to make a move.
Yeah, you look at their fastest laps of the race, which is the Audi at the front of the field set its fastest lap of a 26.5 on that last lap, followed closely by a 26.6 from Roach in second place in the orange McLaren. So it shows how close it is, and there is a decent amount of aerodynamic grip produced by these GT3 cars, and at the speeds they're going, especially the medium high speed corners like this one here, Coppice, you just feel a little bit of front wash, so he'll be looking to have a good exit through the Fogarty S's, because that last sector, as you mentioned earlier on, is the place where you're going to see some moves, I reckon. You'll unless a mistake is made, you know, the middle sector, sort of old hairpin, McLaren's and Coppice, it's quite difficult to launch an attack.
Tom is on a charge on this lap, 2 personal bests in the opening 2 sectors. Is he close enough to have a go into Melbourne? Hugo Cook's Audi twitching around, almost outbraked himself slightly. I think he was a little concerned that Roach was closer than he had been on previous laps, but managed just about to get the race-leading car stopped at the apex, and ultimately, Piers, that could be the kind of thing that decides this. It's not going to be easy for Tom to make an outright move, but if he can force a mistake out of Hugo Cook, outfox him somehow, that could yield the race lead to the McLaren.
Yeah, that's going to be it, isn't it? It's basically for the Audi not to make a mistake. You think it is Hugo Cook, was it? I believe so. Yeah, I think I was wrong with Sasha Kakad. I think it is Hugo Cook behind the wheel from what I can see from the helmet, his purple helmet shining through. So Hugo's driving well so far, hasn't made a mistake. Little bit squirrely into the Melbourne hairpin there, wasn't he? You can see him car moving around a lot right on the ABS, but it looks like Tom Roach is very, very strong on the brakes, especially in that final sector. Closes up more than you would expect with the Concertina, so he's maybe just sizing something up.
Yes, he always was a fan of a late lunge under braking back in his MX-5 days, I seem to remember, and I'm sure that Tom is going to try and apply that again here today. Now, on the horizon there, we saw the next sort of chapter of the story about to develop, lapped traffic. There are 1 or 2 who have had early issues. They're going to go a lap down early on. Could that maybe present an opportunity for Tom Roach? It could, I guess, but it could also allow Hugo Cook to break away. It's
going to produce, it's either going to extend or close the gap, I reckon. It's David Frankland, I think, in the Group GTH AMG, the light blue and red car. They're getting past before the braking zone for for Hugo Cook is good point, is a good place to pass it. Oh, and very, very deep on the break goes Tom Roach, going wide, nearly missing the corner and having to make David get out of the way as well. That will certainly have hurt the, and you can see the gap has extended there between Cook and Roach.
Well, Tom knew, didn't he, that he had to clear that car before the apex. If he sat behind it through the corner, he'd have lost even more time. As it is, he'll drop a couple of tenths, but actually could have been a lot worse that. And at least he kept it on the black stuff. Meanwhile, further back down through the old hairpin, we've got the number 78 McLaren. That's the Tim Docker started machine, the car he'll share with Alex Walker in the pit stop race a little bit later on. 15th place he sits right now. He's got John Curry ahead in the number 96 car. And so we've got a pair of the Group GTH cars battling together here, and I believe they're fighting for 4th place in class.
And I think that might be a Group GTC car actually. I think that might be Doc Bush in the in the 911.
Yeah, you're right. He's actually putting a lap on him, I think, isn't he? Here, the Porsche having some early dramas then. So this is not a fight for position, but interesting to see the GT4 spec car that runs in the GTH class keeping up with the Group GTC car, which runs, I believe, with no ABS or traction control. That car must be a little bit more of a handful than a GT4 car.
Oh, almost certainly. The driver aids these days are very, very useful, and you see the drivers making the most use of it, being off the corner, going in very narrow and sort of sitting on the ABS to allow the car to slow down as quickly as possible. As Dan Leung has now made his way through on that Group GTH car. But that's one thing you were mentioning, that the Group GTC and the Group GTH cars very close on circuit, and one thing that the GT Cup provides, which is great, is you can have decent races on circuit even if it isn't for direct position in your group.
Exactly, because that's another racing driver trait, isn't it? They see a car ahead of them, they want to overtake it, they see a car in the mirrors, and they want to keep it behind them, regardless really of whether it matters towards championship standings or not.
Yeah, and it is something that Chris Murphy keeps coming back in that white BMW. He says, I'm nowhere near any of the cars in my group, but I love going out and racing whoever's right in front of me, and we see him coming back time after time, and it's great to see such a variety of cars racing together on circuit at the same time. But regardless, you've either got, you can race in your own group or you can race with other groups, but the front of the field, the gap is still less than a second. It was only just over 4 tenths at the line.
There is the number 17 McLaren staying out of the way as one of the quicker Group GTH Mercedes came through. The leaders, though, as Piers quite rightly says, still circulating within only 4 tenths of each other. I don't think this gap has ever been more than about 6 tenths or so since the start of the race. They're coming up now against those two cars that we were just mentioning, and this could provide a bit of a challenge for Hugo Cook, because I think he's going to catch this McLaren maybe just on the exit of the Fogsy S's. The speed you can carry through here in a GT3 car is immense, and I'm sure that if nothing else, that distracted him slightly. And might this now give Tom Roach a chance to attack?
Here we go. Tom Roach has definitely gained some time on Hugo Cook there. You really don't want to catch a slower car in the middle of a corner. You're much better off. It feels counterintuitive, but lift off way before the corner so you can get on the power exactly where you normally would and drive through the exit without catching the car in front. Because think about it this way. If you catch the car and the exit the cornering and then have to accelerate from there, you're going slower than you normally would. You'd rather go slower to start with and then join back on your racing line.
Oh, Tom Roach, I thought for a second was going to try and jink up the inside of the Porsche there to make a move, but thought better of it. Fascinating battle, isn't it? Again, Hugo delayed on the exit of Redgate Corner. Tom Roach closes now to within a car length or so through Hollywood, but this is that part of the circuit where the aerodynamics just make it that little bit harder to follow closely. Let's see how close he can stick to the Audi. Oh, just lost a mile an hour or so on the apex of the old hairpin, and that kills your run all the way, quite steeply uphill actually, through Starkey's and Schwann's curve. And by the time they arrive at McLean's, Hugo Cook once again has Tom Roach at arm's length. This is a fascinating battle. 11.25 minutes to go, and Tom Roach is not going to give in.
It is only just arm's length though. This is certainly the closest they've been since lap 1 on the middle sector of the lap. Tom Roach will be pushing hard through the Fogarty S's, and there's more Group GTH traffic as well, so that could play into this battle. I think this is going to go on for the remainder of the race.
I think so. Oh, Tom Roach carries good speed into the chicane, maybe a bit too much speed actually. He was a little slower on the exit, and I was about to make the point that actually through these final 2 hairpins at Melbourne and Goddard's, Tom really seems to roll the centre of the corner a little bit better than Hugo. He's really going to have to do that now to try and close back in on the Audi. Group GTH traffic on the horizon. Hugo Cook will try and slip up the inside of the first of those cars into the final turn, which he does. Oh, and that was a close moment there for Roach as well, as I think the GTH car thought that only one car was going to come by. But Tom Roach had committed to the move. 7 tenths of a second the gap, but that might now start to ebb and flow a bit more in traffic.
Yeah, that was the car of of the number 96 Group GTH, just jumping out the way mid-corner, making sure they didn't make contact, but it was good driving from all. Oh no! That is Roach getting going to get slightly held up by the Greystone GT4.
Yeah, that was unfortunate, wasn't it? Not really a lot that the Greystone car could do there, but Tom Roach definitely delayed. Ian Campbell there we saw still circulating in 4th place. Don't forget Darren Leung is in 3rd. His lap times have not been too bad. In clean air, he's been within about 8/10 or so of the top 2, and that's not bad at all. These are much more experienced drivers, certainly in Tom Roach's case, and Darren Leung is an out-and-out AM driver, doing a good job there in that 3rd position. 5th place is still where you find your GTC leader. That's car number 2, as it has been all race really, Charlotte Gilbert. In Group GTH, it is the number 13 car that retains the advantage of Callum Davis, and in Group GTO, we are still looking, aren't we, at the Paul Bailey Championship leading car at the head of the pack. And now the leader's starting to get into some of those midfield battles, and these are the harder back markers to negotiate. When they're 1 or 2 at a time, you can pick them off, but when the cars you're lapping are battling, they're not always ready for you to arrive in their rearview mirror.
No, so close. You can see the speed that Tom Roach carried into the final corner, slightly washing wide, but that's really helped his assault on the lead of the race. It's only, what's the look at the gap over the line, again still just 0.6 of a second. It pretty much is stationary there, even through the traffic, as he's having to look around the outside now.
Yeah, I think that will have delayed him slightly, won't it? Let's see what the gap's like on the exit. Yeah, had to sit behind the BMW at the apex of Redgate Corner, and that just dropped him a few lengths from the race leader. Gives us an opportunity maybe to catch up with the GTH battle, which is on your screen now, coming down the hill. The number 69 car there is Chris Hart, ex-Fun Cupper, and he is chasing down that number 13. That is a battle for the GTH lead, just as close, Piers, as the GT3 classes.
Yeah, it'd be great if you stay on this battle for a while now, because these two are going at it, and that battle is going to be just as tight as a fight at the front of the Group GT3 field, because they're also still fighting with that Group GTO of Murphy in the white BMW as well.
They are indeed. Out of Coppice Corner they will head then. Mercedes looking to try and close in on the McLaren ahead, that number 13 car of Callum Davis, the group leader right now, on course for maximum points if he can stay there, but Chris Hart has other ideas, fires the Mercedes AMG GT4 through the Fogarty S's. The teams watch on anxiously from the pit lane. Is Chris going to have a dive? Not quite close enough. They both close in on the Murphy BMW ahead, which sits in 10th place overall, and that does add that extra level of complication to this battle, because you do feel that at certain parts of the circuit, Davis may be actually getting held up by the BMW, but there's no way he's going to pass it because it has such a straight line speed advantage.
Such a massive straight line speed advantage, and you can see the gap between those two is closed down. Flash of the lights there to say, I'm still here, mate, I'm still coming through. And then there's a flash from the McLaren as well to hopefully get the attention of Murphy and the BMW, say, please sir, I'm in a fight, let me through.
I don't think he's going to listen, unfortunately, Callum. No. I think you're going to have to do that by yourself. Race leader overall, Hugo Cook, makes his way up the hill, and now that Roach has dropped back that extra few lengths, he does seem to be struggling to close in. It's only a 25-minute race, this, Piers, but I do have to mention tyres. You'd imagine that Tom Roach maybe is using his tyres a bit harder. He's running in that dirty air. He's the one who's been lunging and really late on the brakes. Is that maybe what we're starting to see now, or is 20 minutes too short a space of time for tyre wear to come into it?
25 minutes is certainly a sprint race, but the tyres, you know, if you're pushing them hard, and this really is a sprint race, you might start to feel them just the edge of grip go away if you're pushing that extra bit hard. And we've seen Tom Roach pushing very, very hard, especially into the braking zones, that final sector, washing wide a couple of times right under the rear wing of the Audi at the front, and it might just be the difference why he was able to stay within 4 or 5 tenths at the start of the race, and now it's sort of somewhat stagnated at about 7 tenths.
Chris Hart then is a similar sort of distance really behind his group leader, which again gets bottled in behind the BMW. It's been a good drive this, in fairness, from Murphy, but I'm sure that Callum Davis would quite like him to just move out of the way now, but they're fighting for overall track position. This is what John Murphy enjoys doing. He's not going to wave the McLaren through, and actually Callum makes a bit of a mistake there at the Goddard's hairpin, runs wide, hooks up the late apex, but was a little bit slower off the turn. And now we also throw in the fact that the third place man, Darren Leung, is coming up to lap them. He nips up the inside of Chris Hart. Does this maybe change the dynamic of this group GTH lead battle?
Chris Hart getting past in quite a convenient place there. If you're a Group GTH car or a slower car, you want to get past on a straight part of the circuit and not a corner as we just saw there. As down the inside, Darren Leung takes a big dive up the inside the old hairpin. That's a bold manoeuvre, but the cooperation between the two Beamers.
Yeah, I know that there's obviously a difference in machinery there, but still, that required a bit of commitment there from Darren. Something he's never really lacked in, even back in his one-make Ginetta racing days. Right, 5 minutes to go. Tom Roach maybe just starting to inch back towards the race leader. The timing screen confirming that, Piers.
Yeah, last lap around, Tom Roach set his and overall fastest lap of the race, only by about 300ths of what the fastest lap was set earlier in the race by Hugo Cook, but he is certainly faster. He was almost, it's only about a 10th faster than the leader, but still, a 10th is a 10th, and that gap visibly is closer than it has been the last couple of laps.
Yeah, I think he's taken more this time. Let's see what the lap times are. A 26.6 for the leader, 26.5, so again, only a 10th or so taken. The gap looked a bit less than that as they went into the final turn, but Hugo Cook is hanging on, and Roach pushing as hard as he can, bounces wide over the exit curb. That is a sign, maybe, that he's starting to drive a little bit beyond the limits of the tyres, beyond the limits of the cars.
Oh, no!
He's not going to back off. There's a spinning McLaren up the road, one of the Group GTH cars, and neither of them seem to miss a beat.
Wow, that was commitment from the two guys at the front, not slowing down for that whatsoever. Oh no, now the white Lotus is just right on line, and they are together. Ooh. They are right together for the race lead.
This is fantastic stuff. The back markers definitely now starting to unwittingly have an effect on this lead battle. This is good for Tom Roach, though. He's close now as we head down to that final sector of the track. That seems to be where the McLaren driver has the edge, and down at the Melbourne hairpin lies one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit. It requires a good exit from the chicane first, though. Into the left, over the curb, neat and tidy for Hugo Cook. Neat and tidy for Tom Roach as well, but maybe just a bit too far back. Another missed opportunity then.
Cook's doing what he just needs to do, which is staying pretty clean, getting a good exit out of the Fogarty S's. It doesn't matter how much speed you carry in, really, because it's not really a big overtaking opportunity. It's only a breaking down a gear or two. Whereas into the Melbourne hairpin, you're going from over 100 miles an hour down to, it must be, what, 25, 30 mile an hour apex speed? I don't know. I haven't actually driven a GT3 around that part of the circuit, but it's not fast. But then the speed out of the corner of the Melbourne hairpin, if you ever come and watch at Donington, a good place to watch is right on the exit of that hairpin. You get a feel for just the thunderous power. And you can see both drivers using all of the road and a little bit more. Wow, they are both pushing as hard as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. They both really, really want this race win, don't they? Down through the old hairpin then, and a bit of dirt on those left-hand side tyres for both drivers means they'll have to be a bit careful turning into the high-speed right-hander. And Tom Roach once again drops back a little way. I can't see any traffic. Well, there's one car there that just whizzed through, so they will be lapping at least one more car before the end, and I think we might yet have time for 3 laps as well. I reckon they cross the line with time to get round at least twice more. So through Coppice Corner, Tom Roach running out of time, but not yet out of options.
Yeah, both of these drivers using all of the road and a little bit more. Something that might come into play is the track limits here. We've seen it before. We saw it last time we were here in the GT Cup Championship. Too many track limit warnings will result in a time penalty. We haven't seen any so far. I'll just double check from the front guys. No, it doesn't look like we've had any penalties as such, but still, running wide too many times will get the attention of the stewards, and you can quite quickly find yourself with a 5-second or 10-second penalty, or even if you go too much drive through.
Indeed so. Meanwhile, side by side, and that's a change for the group lead, isn't it? Round the outside at McLean's goes Chris Hart. Has he made it stick? Yes, he has. That's a really tough move to make, but now he drifts a bit wide, coming out of Coppice Corner. Back up the inside will go Callum Davis, and they're going to try and go side by side, are they? No, the Mercedes hangs on. We only saw the back end of that move there, Piers, but that was real commitment from Chris Hart, but his job is not done yet.
Davis was fully committed. Well, that's a great move from Chris Hart, but Davis was fully committed through Coppice, taking all of the curve, a bit of dust being thrown up to try and get an overlap, but we're not done here. Looking outside now, he's setting himself up for a good exit to put himself potentially alongside going into the final corner.
10th place up for grabs, but more importantly, the Group GTH victory is what they're fighting for. Mercedes versus McLaren, and a battle as old as time in GT4 racing, and they're absolutely latched together. Hart is wide of the apex at Goddard's. The better exit should therefore lie with the McLaren, which sits in the wheel tracks, flashes the headlights. That's got to be worth at least another 30 brake horsepower down the straight, but is it going to be enough to create a move? Not into Redgate Corner, and Chris Hart just needs to settle into a rhythm now. He's got the track position. That is huge around here. He can't now afford to make a mistake.
Yeah, that is a great move. But Davis, I don't think quite realises how unintimidating those McLaren headlights are. They're just like little indicators, but still, it's a statement of intent that I'm coming back through if at all possible.
Indeed So nose to tail they run through the old hairpin. The leaders, by the way, separated by nearly 9/10 of a second, and I think they might be about to come through and start their final lap momentarily. Of course, these two have an extra bit of racing to be done because they're only up at McLean's corner now, so they're going to have another lap to go at the end of this one, I think, up towards Coppice corner. Through the blind right-hander, really tough corner that you've got to commit to the apex long before you can really see it. Both drivers pretty neat and tidy as they head down the exhibition straight and towards the Fogarty S's. Chris Hart having got ahead, not really pulling ahead. This always seemed to be a very evenly matched pair of drivers, and that's proving to be the case even with the Mercedes in front.
Whoa, Tom Roach again using all of the track and a bit more, throwing caution to the wind, but you can see almost like we had at the front of the GT3 field with Hugo Cook. Hart doing exactly what he needed to do, getting through the Fogarty S's, just get a good exit, and that means that you're pretty much safe for the run down into the Melbourne hairpin. You don't have to defend, which then means you can get a good exit into the final corner, so you don't have to defend there too. But that gap has definitely closed down, potentially traffic playing into play once again. An awkward place to catch a lapped car, a big dive from both of them.
Wow, that was super late on the brakes. Tom Roach knew how important it was to get past Keith Bush's Porsche, which he did, but came off the chicane a little bit more slowly than he'd like. Is he going to try and dive to the inside of the Melbourne hairpin? Closes right in, but Hugo Cook just about had it covered. It's been a terrific ding-dong battle this for 25 minutes. Our opening GT Cup Championship race of the day, I think, is going to be won by Hugo Cook, but after a race-long onslaught from Tom Roach, who throws one last challenge in at the final turn, it won't be enough though. Hugo Cook brings the Audi to the line and wins the opening race of the weekend at Donington Park. Tom Roach threw everything at that and comes up half a second short, but you certainly can't fault him for trying. That was a terrific drive, brilliant defensive drive from Hugo Cook, and Tom Roach did not give him a moment to catch his breath.
Tom Roach with absolutely no lack of effort or commitment, but we've still got a fight for Group GTH as we're looking side by side down towards the Fogarty S's. Up the inside, no, not space there.
Callum Davis trying to find an opening. Chris Hart not leaving him one, but by going in defensive into the chicane, Hart leaves himself vulnerable on the exit. Look at the exit speed from the McLaren there. Callum Davis closing in, and once again Chris will have to defend down into the Melbourne hairpin. Who's going to emerge in front? Hart goes in a bit too deep, trips wide on the exit. One more corner to go then in Group GTH, and who is it going to be? Can Callum Davis find a way back into the race lead that he held for so long? Again, a defensive line taken by Hart. As long as he's not too slow on the exit, I reckon he'll just about hang on, but it could be a drag race to the line. Get the photo finish camera ready. It is just about the Mercedes, I think, that gets there first, and Chris Hart gets the Group GTH victory by just under a quarter of a second, as Callum Davis once again did not go down without a fight.
That is so close. Two winning battles decided by, tenths of a second. It was Tom Roach only 5/10 down. Oh, we've got an issue on the final corner of the race. That's the number 28.
Championship leader Paul Bailey, that is, with a spin in the GTC Lamborghini. Now, he was leading his class up to that point, and I think has lost out, hasn't he? Yes, because it's going to be actually the number 2 car of Charlotte Gilbert who gets the class win, and Bailey ends up 7th place overall.
Oh, right, yes, 7th place overall. Still decent result. Didn't think it hurt his results too badly, but not an ideal finish to the race. Didn't see how that started, but then, there's the race winners coming back in, but such close racing throughout that race. Andy, that was a good start to the weekend.
Not bad at all. Some fantastic racing. Yeah, correction, actually. Charlotte Gilbert was leading that group already. That was just a position with another class car that he lost there, Paul Bailey, but not ideal. I don't think there was contact. I reckon it was Seamus Jennings behind him. I don't think they touched. I think he just had a bit of a rotation on his own.
Potentially, but here we'll have a quick look at the provisional results.
Yep, Tom Roach second in the end, of course. Hugo Cook managing to hang on to the flag. Roach in second place, then third place for Darren Leung in the Century Motorsport BMW, with Ian Campbell coming home in fourth. Then you have the Group GTC winner. That was Charlotte Gilbert, we believe, at the wheel of the number 2 Lamborghini, ahead of Seamus Jennings, who we saw getting past Paul Bailey right at the final turn when the championship leader had that spin. Then it was Jay Shepherd in the Group GTO Lamborghini. Of course, Bailey managing to hang on to his class victory there in GTO despite the late spin. 9th place for the 999 GTC Porsche, and then 10th position for our GTH Group winner, that being Chris Hart. After that race-long battle that he had with Callum Davis, Callum has to settle for second place, only a quarter of a second between them at the line. 12th place overall then for the number 72 BMW of Murphy. Then it was the Carter number 14 McLaren. John Curry in his Mercedes was next, ahead of Keith Bush, Tim Docker. Then the 247 car of Alana Carter, and the last 18th place, I should say, goes the way of the number 91 Mercedes of David Franklin. Then it was Melly Zhang, and one car that wasn't running at the flag. Unfortunately, we didn't see much of it in that race because it pulled into the pit lane at the end of the green flag lap. Richard Chamberlain's Porsche 935 not making it into the race at all. So, fantastic racing there then from our opening race, the first of 4 races this weekend in the GT Cup Championship. Let's head down to the pit lane then for all the reaction from what was a thrilling 25 minutes of racing.
That was quite an interesting sprint race, really, wasn't it, Piers? And like I mentioned at the start of the race, it really was the battle of the GT3s and the GTHs.
Both classes decided by less than 6 tenths, so it was only just over 5 tenths for Group GT3, and then 2.5, was it 0.24 or something for Group GTH, fighting throughout the field as well in other groups. And yeah, what a great way to start the weekend. It makes our job in the commentary box that much easier when the fighting is so close.
Well, it really does. And Tom Roach, I think he was doing well. He was really trying to fight for that position, wasn't he, for pole position. And when I was catching up with the team, when I was in the garages, Will Dendy, who has raced with Orange Racer before, was telling me there's quite a lot of aero wash, and that was really going to affect his race when you're behind. When you're in front, it's a little bit easier to manage, but if you're behind, it's going to affect your race. So I thought that was really good between them two at the front.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the commentary box, as you heard, and it was just you know, it was 4 tenths, 5 tenths the whole race pretty much. Tom Roach right up behind. He looked really strong into the braking zones of the final sector, but just to that middle sector where the speeds are a bit higher, potentially struggling with a bit of front end aero wash. But same, less aero wash so in GTH, which is reflected by how close they were at the finish of the race. Great driving from both of those Group GTH drivers. Of course, Hart taking the win in the end.
Well, we do have a new face, and that is Callum Davis, and he has been putting in some stunning laps. Quali was great for him, and I was watching, obviously, between them two. It was so close, but like you say, Hart came in at the end and took it, and that's great for him because they're great drivers. GTH were struggling, I think, when they were battling between the Aston Martin Vantage is not here with us this weekend. So now they're really getting their grips out, aren't they?
Great to see a new driver come in the championship and be right there, ready to go, challenging the stalwarts as it was, but still a great race. A great race to start the weekend. I'm looking forward to the afternoon. I'm going to see if I can grab a word with Tom Roach. Is Tom available? If I can grab... Yeah, I think Tom Roach is going to come over.
Should we go and speak to Tom?
Yeah, so Tom is, of course, drove really well in that first one. I'm going to see if we can grab him in a moment. Amber's running in the garages. Well, if there's anyone else in the pit lane who can hear this, who wants to come and have a chat with us, it'd be great to hear about your race. Yeah, Tom's coming over. Amber's going to grab a quick word. Amber, what do you want to hear from Tom?
Amazing, Tom. How was that for you? It was a little bit of a struggle, wasn't it? There was so much going on in that race.
Yeah, it was pretty busy. Fed up at the sight of the back of an Audi. It was a long 25 minutes. Hugo didn't make any mistakes at all. I was hoping in vain, but he drove brilliantly. And I think we were a little bit faster, but it's so hard to follow. Once you get within like half a second, you start losing grip from the aero. So yeah, catch back up and then lose it and catch back up.
Were you still happy with that? Obviously, when I spoke to you before this race and after quali, you were a little bit deflated in the sense, but how are you feeling after this? You really put it out there, didn't you?
Never happy being a first loser.
It looked like you were really strong in that final sector. You could every lap you were coming right on the brakes. A couple of times you were nearly close enough to have a look, but not quite.
I did consider it the last lap. I thought, oh, shall I ever go? But the parts on these are very expensive to replace when you break them. So yeah, thought second will do.
Save it for later in the weekend. Thanks for chatting to us, Tom.
Amazing.
Great result.
Thank you, Tom.
Great. Wow.
What a race. I thought it was going to be quite clean when I was watching it, because in between the other classes I thought, oh, there's not really a lot going on, but there was so much going on in that race. It was amazing. So we will be back later. It's been great, hasn't it, Piers?
It's been great as a jet flies overhead. What starts the weekend, hopefully the rest of the weekend will be just as close as we've witnessed in that one.
Amazing. So we will see you for the next race, the endurance race. See you later.